Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to the Power Outlet. All right, so we're going to get started right away with bringing on the speakers because we are starting super late. All right, our first guest for this evening is Naima Robinson. Yes, she's an educator. She's going to teach us something about our history, something that you all definitely should hear.
So, peace and love, greetings. Hi. Greetings. I am very, very happy and honored that lovely Moniqua McCoy asked me to be here. And this is my first time here. It's actually my first time in this space or in this venue, and it's very nice. I've met already very nice people, had really wonderful conversations already, so I feel right at home. And I was a little worried at first when Moniqua asked me to come out here because I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur. Independent-minded, yes, but not so much of an entrepreneur. And so I wasn't really sure, like, what was expected of me, in this particular space. But I look at it now, and we are like-minded family in this space. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm so grateful that you asked me. So first and foremost, I've said, greetings, hotep, peace, and love. And my name is Naima Robinson, and I consider myself a cultural warrior. And I say that knowing that there are many cultural warriors right here amongst us. There are cultural warriors right in the midst of us. Sometimes we don't recognize them or don't even acknowledge them, but when we do, we say peace. Or Sister Bernadette really is also a cultural warrior, and so when we connected, that let me know that we're everywhere. So I'm outing myself, right? It's like a coming out, that I am a cultural warrior in the midst, right here in Suffolk County. And my background as a teacher, I taught history for 10 years in social studies, what we call in the school system social studies, K through 12. I taught in a high school for 10 years. I worked in Amityville High School for a year in an administrative capacity. I'm currently teaching in Westbury High School. This summer I will be directing a program at SUNY Farmingdale for the Educational Opportunity Program. I'm an educator. I have a bachelor's degree in history, and I have 2 master's degrees. I have one in history and secondary education and one in school leadership. I'm in a doctorate program, so I'm a doctoral student. I've completed 42 credits in that program. I'm in the 4th year, and I'm writing my dissertation. So my dissertation topic is on the impact that mass incarceration has on what we call the academic achievement gap, which is really the underachievement of African American students as the performances shown on standardized testing. So it's interesting because the concept of incarceration for us as people of color is really slavery. It's really just slavery by another name. I mean, we see the chains, the shackles on your hands and your feet. We see the confinement and limitation of your physical body, the exploitation of your labor, and all of the attendant economic benefits that come from the mass incarceration of our population. So, but we don't always think about how that incarceration impacts the academic achievement of young people, of our children. But it's really so much more than that. Michelle Alexander says that it's the new Jim Crow, that mass incarceration is the new Jim Crow. And the incarceration of African Americans has really escalated since the 1970s, which if you think about the 1970s, that's your Black liberation movement. That's the Black power movement. That's when we're coming into consciousness, right? When we were actually breaking chains of mental slavery, and find that the incarceration rate goes up 700%, right? 700 times. Like, we have the mass incarceration, which is justified through what's called the war on drugs, which is really a war on communities of color and poor communities. So we have an epidemic, really, of over-policing in our communities, the criminalization of Black males in particular, underemployment, and a sort of forced criminalization due to poverty and broken communities. And we break communities by taking the men and increasingly more and more women out of the community, putting them into prison so that children don't have parents at home. And this is just another attack, another form of genocide against our community. I've been reading Angela Davis lately and listening to Angela Davis. She was talking in the 70s about, the idea of what it means to be a criminal. If you know her story, she was charged with murder and put on, going to be given the death penalty. What it means to be a criminal. She was working with George Jackson, Soledad. And they were brave. They were brave enough to even try to break out of that system. But what happened to us in the 70s, I think, has somewhat put a serious and a legitimate fear in us to try to break those chains, because we look at what happened to those people and how they were murdered and assassinated in cold blood. I mean, and so much has happened to us. It's almost inconceivable that we could even be here right now, because so much tragedy and horror has happened to us, and yet we survive and we thrive, and we are still here. So, talking about incarceration and the criminal justice system is something that I do and that I'm writing about. But in the interest of full disclosure, my father is a judge, and my mother is a doctorate from an Ivy League institution, and I have been privileged to have a quality education. And intellectual and educated Black people are so tied up in the system that we are actually working to uphold the system. That in essence, the system doesn't work without our cooperation. We are complicit in our own oppression in that way. We make the system work, and the system works against us. It works against it defies logic, but this is, in fact, the way the system is working. And people like me who got expensive educations look back and realize that this is actually part of my own process of enslavement, was getting this education, my own detriment, because this education is really making us an agent of our own oppression and an agent of the oppressor. We are educated to work for our oppressor. That's why being amongst entrepreneurs is important, because we need to break that cycle, which has started with slavery and global colonialism. But we actually work and educate ourselves to become agents of our professors, to be slaves. We learned how to go to college and learn to be better slaves, how to serve the white man better. They tell us we're smart if we're doing what they want us to do. And we learn how to think like a white man, how to dress like a white man, how to be white. That's what we learn. in the school. That's what the schools teach us. And as a teacher in the school system, that's what they paid me to do. You know, they don't tell you that, but that's what you're there to do, you know. And it was disheartening and discouraging. James Baldwin said the paradox of education is that once you become conscious, you start to examine the society in which you're being educated. And it is a paradox. And it can be quite troubling for independent-minded people. I say I'm a cultural warrior. That I am just that's my destiny. I didn't want to be or ask to be. You know, my ancestors are very clear to me, from my understanding, that that's just my job, right? I was given many blessings, blessed to have a wonderful, supportive family, and my job is just to continue the struggle that they started. You know, I'm just them, really. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for them, and they are me, and they're watching and hoping that we all just carry their legacy and continue their struggle. So I want to share also and give acknowledgement to one of my primary teachers, which is I studied at a school called the Earth Center of Ma'anu, which is a Kemetic initiation school, and my teacher was Nabala Musa Moridenibeg, who was a Dogon priest. And I've also studied and been privileged to study with many people who just sometimes picked me up off the street, you know, and I've learned so many things from teachers. So I sat with my teachers, I learned from them, and now you give knowledge, you have to pass it on, right? So try to do that, knowledge of self. When I was, you know, a little younger, the 5% nation was they were always saying knowledge of self, right? And that's really the essence of what it is and what our children want and what we still as adults want, that knowledge of self. Something that Noble Drew Ali did, Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Rastafarians, you know, giving this knowledge of self. But the attack on our culture and our communities and our spirits is so profound that we have to fight it. And the way I think we fight it is through this education, this self-education, and also educating the young people. So I think about my own struggle. Like I've struggled. I definitely have struggled just to find how to live in this system and be still true to myself and what I feel my destiny and my purpose is. Judy Krishnamurti says that there's no measure of health to be well adjusted in a profoundly sick society, right? So the fact that I'm a little maladjusted, I think, is okay, right? Because the idea of being fully adjusted in a society that's so sick, it's not a sign of health, right? That's what Krishnamurti says. So I work now at a community center in Amityville called Keep Your Change. It's in the Quintine Community Center in Amityville. I was teaching some Black history classes there, and we're working to do other things to really educate and empower our young people. So I want you to know that. You can bring the children there. We're there every day after school, Monday through Friday until about 8:30, working with the children. I'm not there every day, but there are people there doing math, you know, just teaching our children and to educate them. So I'm going to go a little bit and say something about, we want our kids to know who they are. And if we want them to really know who we are, that's something that we have to do ourselves. The schools are not going to pay teachers to do that. That's not what the school system is for. You know, the Black Panthers had a 10-point program, and one of their 10 points was to teach the children the truth, so that they could be the most powerful force for change in the world. Well, they're not being educated for that. They're not being taught that, and the school system is not going to do that. It's not going to educate our children properly, and if that's something that's important to us, it's something that we need to do ourselves. They have access, especially here in America, they have access to so many resources. They have so much natural creativity. And then the position that we are in the world, meaning the whole world is watching us and everything that we do, they really could be a catalyst for change in the world if they had that proper education, that proper knowledge of self. If we had it, we really could, because, the essence of the word educate, educare, or to educe, to bring out what's already in you, right? To bring out what's already in you. So when you know what's in you, you know the power, there are moments that I can really feel that power, and it's so scary. That's why I keep people away from me a lot of times, because when we know that, and I'm not unique, I'm not unique. We all have that power. We all have a healing power. Each and every one of us. When I've been able to tap into that, that's something that you just have to be. That's an education. But if I had an education that taught me how to tap into my own healing power, tap into my own creative power, be able to manifest my own thoughts, then that's a real education. This is our original education. This is the education that we learned in Kemet. This is the education that we learned in initiated schools. This is the education that I didn't pay $100,000 to learn from the university, okay? Even though they put the pomp and circumstance, and they, you get the hood, and they pretend to initiate you in knowledge, but they don't. They don't initiate you in real knowledge. But when you really get the knowledge, that's what it's for. Audre Lorde said, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." So right? I'll say it again. She said, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." So if we're thinking we're going to get their doctorate degree and it's going to make us a revolutionary and we're going to liberate ourselves and free our children and reclaim the planet, and it's not going to happen. Okay? We have our own knowledge. I was thinking about that movie, Get Out. You guys have... No, that was a good movie. What? Man, that Jordan Peele, it was genius, because one of the things that's happening is a hypnosis. We are literally under a hypnosis. It's so strong that, look, I'm under it too. All you gotta do is show me some nice shoes, and my eyes glass over, and I start thinking about how I can get them and how I can get enough money to buy them and how soon can I get them when I order them on my phone. It's a hypnosis. It's a trigger. We are all under a hypnosis, and that movie illustrated that in such it was very subversive and in a profound way, because what's happening is that the system, the system is using our energy and our spiritual power, and it's been doing that for thousands of years. So we become the power, like in the Matrix, like the batteries, right? We become the power, the spiritual power, the intellectual power, the physical power that actually keeps this system working. We are that power, right? And they've been doing that to us for thousands of years now, for 2,000 years, out of their own inferiority complex, because they were the last to be civilized on the planet and the last to make an impact on the planet, and so they decided to turn the whole entire thing upside down and destroy the whole thing. But that hatred or that desire to control us comes from a deep inferiority complex. Our melanin dominant gene is really frightening. But it's also the source of great power, and we need to embrace all of it. Our skin is actually an organ, which means that it's like a nervous system, which means that the melanin dominant skin receives information from all sources, like a nervous system, right? So, and we have so much the intellectual power that we have. It's not just the physical power that's made the economic foundation of this country through slavery, but also the intellectual energy that, developed things like masonry, architecture, the framing of the farming, all of the farming knowledge that was taken from our knowledge in Merita, our homeland. Benjamin Banneker, the Moors who worked with George Washington, George Washington Carver, all this intellectual energy, physical energy, spiritual energy that was used to build the foundation of this country. Now they still use our creative energy. The biggest industry worldwide is music and entertainment and media, what feeds that but not our creative energy? So we still become the fodder, the source of their great wealth, which is used only to destroy the planet and enslave the people on it, and we don't even know that we're the source of that power. It only works because we're complicit, because we give our power to it. And our children don't even know that they are the power. They have that in them. That movie, I'm going back to it because that movie really set it off. Because it said we want to be like, you got superhuman powers. We want some of that. We want some of them superhuman powers you got. Right? And our children have that and don't even know. Don't even know. But they have an inferiority complex that's not even valid, because they are the best thing that ever happened. The reason they're hated is because they're so good at everything. That's the reason, because we're just so good at everything. Why we gotta be so good all the time and look good and do it right? Even the stupid stuff that we do better than them. Even the stupid stuff, we do a lot of stupid, even nonsense. We do it great, do everything great. So they don't even understand that this is their essence, this is their birthright, this is their legacy and their heritage. We created the world. We created mathematics, art, literature, music, medicine, poetry, architecture, science, spirituality, government. We created it all. Okay, it wouldn't even be here without us. It's in our blood. We actually sustain this world. We keep it from, our spiritual power is what keeps this world from being destroyed. They would have destroyed it already. The reason it's still here is because we are here. They're waiting for us. We are the spiritual power that keeps this place afloat. They would have blown us all up. And they won't let us, we're not going to die. We're not going to be destroyed or eliminated because they need us. We're that essential. And I'm just going to close by, just saying that, again, we make so much money for the oppressor. So what you're doing with your separate projects, keeping some of those resources for ourselves, and hopefully using them to build our community and work towards the true education, the educare, the bringing out of that essence for ourselves and for our children. We have this life for a reason, and it's not just to make money for, the oppressor. So that's all, and I'm so glad that you invited me. Thank you so much.
All right, give another round of applause to Naima.